All right, so pinch hitting here. Anybody familiar with Westwater Canyon, just west of us, downstream on the Colorado River? If you didn't hear me, I was shamelessly admitting to following in Troy and Sparky's footsteps just upstream. I don't have the experience, the time, the bells and whistles that those guys do yet, but I'm working on it, so bear with me. Here to talk to you basically about a show and tell. It's the non-native removal, reveg, and access. So piecing together a little show and tell story of what we're doing just outside of Moab, just west of this area. This here is Cougar Beach down in Westwater Canyon. Well, let's dive into it. We started this project in October of 2009. I believe the beginning was Bunny Stern from the Utah State Office had a few extra dollars that needed to be spent in wilderness study areas. And I raised my hand and said, I have one, I'm interested. So Westwater Canyon, for those of you that do know, for those that you don't, highly prized whitewater rafting opportunity, very scenic, fun rapids regardless of the level. In the last 3 years, we have performed 8 trips. We did have one slated for this coming April, but with the joy of sequestration, the magic money disappeared. So I'm looking for funding always. I have my hands out, and again, I'm shamelessly begging. So we're going to continue this. It's just a matter of how and when. It is a collaboration between the fuels crew, which is actually our fire crew generally during the season. They need work from October 1st in through April, so we wrap them into our recreation projects. The weeds program and riparian program, Anne-Marie's here as well. We greatly appreciate their support and encouragement, not only funding, but consultation with planting and project direction. We also coordinate with Canyonlands National Park. Some of you may know Steve Young, T-Berry. He'll be here this afternoon to share one of his posters. But he has just been amazing with assisting us in the logistics and gear. We've borrowed a number of 18-foot rafts, up to 3 on one trip. When we bring down all these fire crew, clearly my river program doesn't have just the gear alone to support it. So hats off to T-Berry on that one. Why take the challenge? Because we had the opportunity. Opportunity knocked and we were highly interested. There was some funding available. The personalities were right. Different programs had people at the helm that were willing to work together that wanted to do it. Because of the beetle impacts, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, we were seeing problems within our designated campsites. Westwater, again, 17-mile stretch. You're only allowed one night in that river canyon. Obviously, high use, high impacts in those designated campsites. Whether or not they're dead tamarisk remains to be seen, but obviously the beetle impact were an issue. With that came the human health and safety. We do require fire pans down on the river corridor, but as you know, fires can get rowdy and ruckus and sparks end up, and who knows if you're nestled sleeping in one of these nice little tamarisk nooks, what could potentially happen. So you go at it from a safety perspective as well. On top of that, it's just the right thing to do. I'm preaching to the choir in this room. You guys all know that even more so than I, in terms of improving the character, improving the ecology, improving the recreational experience, all those good things. Just downstream of the put-in, Miners Camp is one of the first designated camps. And you'll see here, I don't know if I push this button, there we go. So this is the before, obviously, super thick, rather decadent. And then we look over here at the after. I'll talk about it a little bit more here, but what do you do with the biomass? That was one of the questions asked earlier, and it's an ongoing challenge, ongoing debate too in terms of what the best method is. And I think we've tried to take a scattered approach, do a little bit here and there. As you see, this first trip, we had excellent conditions that day for burning. There's snow on the ground, so that worked towards our favor. These guys, again, they're fire and fuels folks. They're really not boaters, believe it or not. So they're in a little bit out of their element. And when it snows on them, that's all the better. Another reason in terms of why we do it, well, look at what we found. This is after the first clearing. You open up that canopy. Sure, you bring in the potential for the other non-native invasives, knapweed in particular, but underneath that you see what's been trying to reach its way out into the sunlight. So these are really exciting for us to see, and again, this was the first trip, which provides that encouragement to keep going after it. You can see in the background there plenty of tamarisk along that whole entire bench. In fact, I don't know that folks have seen that bench for more than 20 years. So again, the process is to remove the tamarisk. If conditions are appropriate, lack of wind, decent relative temperatures, we can go ahead and do the herbicide approach. In some circumstances, we did use the burn pile, as you can see down in this area, where we concentrated them, pulling the biomass over, letting them go. It's all under a controlled circumstance. We do have burn plans. We work with air quality control. And then if it's not on the same trip, typically on the same trip if the conditions allow, but if it's not, then we come back in, we rake it, we clear it, we remove all the charcoal and actually seed and rake that whole area. As I mentioned, we do require fire pans in this area, so having the recreating public see just sprawls of burn piles goes very counter to what it is that we want them to be doing. Sure, we try and educate them at the put in, but we also try to make it look as pristine as we'd like it to be. Obviously, continued maintenance. It's a never-ending project. With these 8 trips, we try and take a little chink as we go. This spring, we were planning to go in and do some removal downstream, but also retreat the resprouts. Never-ending project, so maintenance and monitoring is crucial. Just a little picture of fire, and it's kind of exciting for some of us. We have seen great native regeneration volunteers in this area. Some of those, the cottonwoods that I pointed to a few minutes ago, they're over 4 feet tall now, which is super. The beaver are a constant challenge, we all know that. So is caging, though. With the high flows of 2011, we ran into some serious problems with caging. You start getting into safety of the river corridor and boating and whatnot. So we keep trying to experiment with different options. Again, large amounts of biomass. Army Corps of Engineers and a lot of people, like Canyonlands National Park, Glen Canyon Rec Area, they don't want to see all this stuff going downstream in particular. So we're always trying to manage the better and best of all evils, so to speak. Application of herbicide, we are definitely still in the dark ages, as Sparky pointed out, of the spray pumps. They definitely serve a purpose in particular locations. I don't believe I have a picture of our weed raft that, again, we shamelessly copied from the Grand Junction field office. But there is one out on the poster outside, so you can take a peek at it. A big difference between what they're doing and what we're doing is the whitewater component. Very similar design, except for ours, we're supposed to make sure that if it flips in the class 3 or 4 rapid, we don't have any hazmat circumstances. So, to be honest, it's only been down the canyon once, and it was quite interesting. The hose reels pose a challenge, so we're constantly trying to tinker with that as well. Again, can't say enough about opening up the area to allow for that native vegetation that's been struggling and trying to get in to show itself. I don't think I have a picture in here, but just downstream of this area, we cleared Upper Dolores campground, and it was amazing. Once you got rid of all the tamarisk, you could see 12-foot tall willows lining the whole bank. Of course, then we had the next year of high flow, and it became a salad bar for the beavers. So, never a dull moment. This is Little Hole Camp, just downstream of Little Hole. This is the camp that we were most concerned about in terms of human health and safety, because there are about 12 little bedroom nooks within this camp area. Obviously, a little bit concerning if a fire were to start, you couldn't ever get over to the river itself or get out from your little nook. But here it is. We've used a different approach at Little Hole, such that we're leaving some of these decadent tamarisk standing to provide shade for the re-veg. Unfortunately, it's really hard to see here, but there are several hundred native grasses and shrubs in this little photo here. We do have a rock line, and I'll get into the people that make that magic happen as well. So in addition to the tamarisk removal, just between the ranger station and miners camp, that first trip, we hit 90 Russian olives. We chose to leave them standing as habitat, treated them. The knapweed challenge is never ending. We hope to get a handle on that with annual treatments. And then the purple loosestrife, which is pretty minimal. Troy could probably speak to his area better, but it's mostly in the bars, in the mid-river, mid-course. And we continue to do that annually, if not biannually. Just last year for the Public Lands Day in September, we had over 2,000 trees, shrubs, and grasses. Some of those trees were 15-gallon cottonwoods. It was pretty awesome to see them going downstream. They went through the first couple little riffles and rapids, and I think the people enjoyed their passengers, so to speak. We've worked with this commercial outfitter here, Adventure Bound. Tom Kleinschnitz graciously provided us one of his 23-foot boats and a guide, she's a volunteer, but to come down and carry a lot of this mass. And then you see over on this side, this is Little Hill Camp, so all those are slated to be put in. I don't need to tell you, last year was amazingly challenging in terms of the drought, the lack of water. It'll be fascinating to see what's really down there this year, see what survived. We just had our first trip go through Westwater Canyon last Saturday, so the ice is clear, at least in terms of the waterway. And now it's time to go back and see what is there and what else we can do. So in addition to the re-veg, we needed to water them, especially last year. The last 2 years we've worked on putting in these irrigation barrels. They're nothing like the sophistication that our folks upstream have. Troy and Sparky have us beat. We don't have timers. We don't have solar panels. We don't have any of that stuff, but we do have dedicated volunteers. Even Jesse, our tech guy, knows this stuff personally. He helped out with filling the barrels. These dedicated volunteers, a lot of them around the Grand Junction area, 2 of them have actually set up their own boats with their own pump systems to come down and help us, which is just awesome. I can't even get my employees to do that. So it's pretty exciting. Obviously, these guys are working hard. They have the pump set up down in the river. This is Miners Camp, filling the barrel. We do the retro way as well, the 5-gallon buckets. We try to encourage all the commercial as well as private folks to be part of this project. Grab your buckets. It's great physical training. It works really well with Boy Scouts, not so well with old fine school boaters. But here's an example of their private hose situation. And they're great. We couldn't do it without them. In fact, I'm sure these 15-gallon cottonwoods, probably none of them would have made it last year if we hadn't had that dedicated volunteer workforce. Now, don't get me wrong, our paid rangers also do it too, so I'm singing the praises of them. But it's a joint effort. Like we keep hearing again and again, it's a team. We don't do these things one person alone. This is the poster you'll see just outside. Please feel free to grab me if you have additional questions. There is a picture of it. Although we don't get to use it enough, it's pretty exciting to have it. We did get these barrels free from Synergy, so they're kind of, again, we're bare bone, shoestring kind of thing. And then as we got to the 6th and 7th barrels, we actually had to buy them. So we're moving in. Some more re-veg. Again, that poster's out there for your view. I wanted to make sure to thank everybody. I can't reiterate enough how much of a team effort it is. The state office has really been supportive. The Washington office has been supportive. The Fire and Fuels program has supported the recreation program. These volunteers that I speak so highly of, their acronym is WAVE, Westwater Association for Volunteer Excellence. If you're interested in being a volunteer, talk to me later. Our local folks, Wild Landscapes, Greene County Weed Department. I should also have Mesa County Weed Department in there too, because they do tend to come down. So big hats off to them. I think it's a really worthy project. And although we're only 3 years into it, it's just beginning. So. Okay, now I'm shifting gears totally. This is an access program. It has nothing to do with revegetation or anything like that. It's what we're doing to increase access for adaptive sports groups and educational institutions on the Moab Daily stretch. So again, just a little further downstream. 2011 and 2012, we ran it as a pilot program just to see what happens. The Moab BLM had one commercial permit available, and this was sort of a novel approach. It's worked really well for us. The folks that have participated love it. So in 2013, we've turned it into what we call the Access Program, because we couldn't call it the Colorado River Access Program because that acronym doesn't work. Moving on. So we do have partners. Again, we don't do this alone. The Utah Outfitter guys, they help vet all the applications, so it's not the BLM being arbitrary and capricious and picking our favorite college or anything. Utah State Parks and Recreation, they're the ones responsible for things like outfitter guide, registration, licensing, and all that. And then Allie and the folks at Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, they're the ones that manage the riverway below Castle Creek. So the sovereign program, can't thank them enough. They support us, and we're here because of that. What it is in 2013 is it's 35 non-overlapping one-week use permits. You guys get the deal. You gotta define it. If you don't define it, people are gonna figure out wiggle room in there, and the next thing you know, you're gonna have those pirate outfitters that you tried to identify. You're gonna have them actually in your system. So we're working really hard with the language. We expanded this year. We used to only have 22, but now we have 35. They can request up to 3 one-week periods. And that's kind of confusing. If you have questions, ask me later. But it's a functional program. It's pretty neat. Again, they need to meet the Utah State voting law through and through. They need to meet the insurance requirements of all 3 agencies, and that includes the right of entry permit for the sovereign lands. In 2011, we had a little bit of use. Colorado Discoverability, located right here in Grand Junction. Great stuff. They did a couple trips. Durango Adaptive did a couple, and Gateway Academy is actually out of the Salt Lake area. It's a residential treatment center. 62 users, 174 user days that were legitimately on the river that previously probably would have been under the radar in terms of private. They have all their own gear already. It's just a matter of legitimizing them and having them do the right thing, which most of them want to do. We just didn't ever have a mechanism for it. So there's the 2011 stats, if you couldn't read that funky table. It's excellent to see these folks out on the water. Colorado Discoverability does basically a kayaking school with veterans and wounded warriors, and then this is sort of the culmination. They do it here and then come over across the border. 2012, we got a little bit more interest, but oddly enough, most users and user days, these were all day trips. So it's just interesting to see how it goes. In that 1-week period that they're awarded, they can do 1 trip, they can do 1,000 trips. There's no allocation as far as that goes. And then this talks about the types of groups that were served. Again, 5 applicants, 3 adaptive sports, 2 educational. Moving into 2013, for the Access program itself, we actually had 10 applicants. One has since decided to pull out because they're Iowa State University. They are too far away to meet the local requirements like Utah guide licensing. It's too cost prohibitive for them to get their guides up and running. But we've got interest, and I'm guessing it's going to continue to grow. And again, these folks have been doing it for 20 years already, so it's just a matter of legitimizing them. So 10 applicants, 3 adaptive sports groups, 7 educational, and this doesn't reflect all the calls and inquiries that I field. So I think through the years it's going to continue to grow. That's it. Thank you very much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions, or again, I'll be out of the poster if you have specifics later.